Welcome to the Three Count Theater. Today, we're going to talk about Dragon Ball Superhero. A tremendous effort, and I'll give them some credit here. This was pretty good. There were some elements of it that made me cringe, that I didn't like, but we'll get to that stuff later. Mostly, I think Dragon Ball Superhero is very good. I like that Dragon Ball Super's movies are going to apparently be canon to the anime and how they are building upon each other. The Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z movies were kind of extra content. Virtually none of them affected the main story. The history or the story of Bardock, that has no effect on Dragon Ball Z. You could watch Dragon Ball Z all the way through and not know that thing even existed. And, same thing with the history of Trunks. But the history of Trunks is very good. The Bardock story is very good. The Broly story is very good. The Lord Slug and all that stuff is very good. Dead Zone, the world's strongest, the Tree of Might, which is personally my favorite one. All of those things are very good, but they're not canon. They're just kind of extra content for Dragon Ball. But when it comes to Super, these movies are actually building upon each other. So you've got elements of Resurrection F in here. You got elements of Battle of Gods in here. You got elements of Dragon Ball Super. Everything is in here. So it feels like almost like a Marvel, where you kind of have to have seen everything else to understand what's going on here and why it's working. And that's good for the Dragon Ball fandom, because the Dragon Ball fandom tends to consume everything. Even stuff that's probably not the best, they tend to consume everything. So that's a +1 for Dragon Ball Superhero. Now the movie, what is the movie about? The movie is about the resurgence of the Red Ribbon Army. Commander Magenta, who is the child of Commander Red, he is going to resurrect the Red Ribbon Army, and he wants his version of Dr. Gero, or Dr. Gero, depending on how you choose to pronounce that. And he finds Dr. Hedo, who is the grandson of Dr. Gero, I'm sorry. And he thinks he's going to blackmail this kid into participating in this. But the kid is interested in doing this solely to fund his research on androids, because like his grandfather, he's really, really interested in androids. Now, there are some interesting layers to the different characters. Now, Magenta, as a character, is just plain evil. He's evil through and through. But Hedo is an interesting character because he's not particularly evil, but he's also not particularly led astray either. And I like that, he walks that fine line. He is a morally gray character. You begin to think, as they having this conversation between Hedo and Magenta, that Magenta is going to force Hedo into working for him. And then you find out that Hedo, he's got the upper hand. He's got this, specially modded skin where he can take a lot of damage. So he's not worried about getting shot or anything like that. And he's got this, this special bead that is good for surveillance. Also has some lethal poison in it. So he gets the upper hand, and he's like, I'm going to work for you for sure, because I want you to fund my research, not because you're forcing me to at gunpoint. And then, as you go through the movie, you learn that Magenta is, of course, pure evil. And Dr. Hedo, again, continues to walk that fine line, as there are certain things that are occurring that Dr. Hedo doesn't really agree with. But because he's morally gray, he just kind of turns a blind eye to it. Interestingly enough, and I love this part, Magenta tells Dr. Hedo about the destruction of the Red Ribbon Army, Goku, all this kind of stuff. And he places it squarely on Capsule Corp. Now, this is where we get an interest and motivation for the villains. Because we see that Magenta he's kind of a conspiracy theorist, but he's not all the way wrong. He's like, Capsule Corporation, they have access to all this wild technology. They're building spaceships and dragon radars and all of this kind of stuff. There's people constantly flying to and fro without airships or anything like that. There is some funny business going on at Capsule Corporation. And he thinks and he believes that there are aliens at Capsule Corporation that are going to enslave humanity. And he tells Dr. Hedo this, and Dr. Hedo starts to believe it too. Because Dr. Hedo knows about Cell and all this kind of stuff, and he's like, Mr. Satan defeated Cell, and Magenta's like, no, there was somebody else that defeated Cell, and so they build this partnership based off of half truths, but not all the way lies. Like Magenta's not lying. There are aliens in Capsule Corporation. There are people flying to and fro. She does have alien technology at Capsule Corp. Like there's all kinds of stuff going on there. So he's not entirely wrong. So Dr. Hedo is he goes and creates the gammas, gamma 1 and gamma 2. Gamma 1 and gamma 2 are they're protector robots of sorts. They're like the Dragon Ball's version of Ultron, where they were created for the purpose of eliminating any and all aliens that could possibly take over the Earth. That is their main goal. And they're going to eliminate all of the Capsule Corporation conspirators. So that's the main plot. The B plot is Piccolo is training Pan. Of course, he's a babysitter. It's Piccolo. And he's left to Pan is 3 years old or 4 years old or something like this at this point. And Gohan is too busy studying fire ants or some nonsense. And so he can't pick up his own daughter from preschool, and her mom's busy. So he wants Piccolo to do it. So Piccolo goes to see Gohan, and he checks Gohan about, one, Gohan not being a good parent and not, picking up his daughter from school. Two, him being a complete and total weakling because Gohan, of course, has not trained. And during the conversation, Gohan basically says, hey, nothing bad's going to happen. Goku and Vegeta will take care of it. So you learn that Gohan just kind of has his lackadaisical attitude still about training. That's an ingrained part of the Gohan character that's not going anywhere. It's just not going anywhere. As long as Goku and Vegeta exist, it's not going anywhere. So Piccolo is very frustrated with Gohan. Now, this is a problem for me because it killed the tension in the movie. So what happens is Piccolo is on his own. Pan is at school. Gohan is studying fire ants or whatever. And Piccolo is, he's meditating. And then he's attacked by Gamma 2, one of the androids. And he thinks that this android thinks that he is Demon King Piccolo. So there's a lot of fan servicey, member berry stuff in here too. Where if you had never seen the original Dragon Ball, you probably don't know what the hell people are talking about. Like, what does he mean, Demon King Piccolo? But again, Demon King Piccolo is who Piccolo is. Technically it's his father, but that is kind of who he is. And this is what the Gammas are created to kill. Because they're like, hey, Majin Buu hangs out at Capsule Corporation. He eats people. The Saiyans hang out at Capsule Corporation. Demon King Piccolo is hanging out at Capsule Corporation. Like, all these villainous, horrible characters are hanging out at Capsule Corp. So that's what Gamma thinks. Gamma thinks, okay, Demon King Piccolo is still Demon King Piccolo. He doesn't know that Piccolo has been protecting humanity for 40 fucking years or whatever. He doesn't know. So he goes in there, he kicks Piccolo's ass. Piccolo escapes and is like, this guy's too much. But he sees the Red Ribbon Army logo on the Gammas, and he learns that, the Red Ribbon Army is back. So he infiltrates the Red Ribbon Army by following the Gamma. He knocks out one of the guards. He wears the suit, and Piccolo is James Bond. He's following along, and he works his way through the compound, and ends up finding Hedo and Magenta in their laboratory talking about Cell Max. Now, Dr. Hedo has created a better version of Cell. It's entitled Cell Max, but the creature is not ready yet. It has all of the power, but its body is okay, but everything else is kind of not really up to par, let's say. So Magenta is absolutely fascinated with Cell Max because that's really what he wanted. He wanted that weapon, because to him, the Gammas and the Cell Max and everything, they're just weapons. And he fully intends to complete world domination, but it's a Doctor Doom style world domination where he's going to conquer the world in order to create peace. And Dr. Hedo agrees with this. He gives that a big thumbs up. But Magenta wants to unleash Cell Max. And Dr. Hedo's like, no, we're not doing that. Besides, the Gammas could take care of everything. So Piccolo then, of course, finds out about Cell Max. He finds out about the Red Ribbon Army. The Gammas are very powerful. Everything is not looking too good. So Piccolo calls Bulma, tells Bulma, hey, where is Vegeta? Vegeta's off doing stuff with Goku. Him and Goku are fighting on Beerus's home planet. Piccolo's like, hey, we there's another Cell thing coming, and that android's pretty damn strong. You guys are going to have to call them boys to come home. So there is some time wasted there, some classic Dragon Ball comedy where Bulma can't find her thingamajig to do such and such, which is almost always a Dragon Ball thing. She can never find anything in her lab. She can never just be like, hey, I found this thing, I have it. So it takes some time for her to find it. Meanwhile, Piccolo goes to Kami's lookout to get some Zenzu beans because, he got his ass kicked by this Gamma thing. And he's also trying to figure out how they can fight Cell Max. He wants to prepare for this. During this point in time, he also overhears about the plan to kidnap Pan. I think this is actually the second time he infiltrates. As he finds out that there's a plan to kidnap Pan in order to draw out Gohan, because Gohan is the one who defeated Cell, and that's really what Magenta wants to do. Piccolo talks himself into going along with the kidnapping of Pan. So he rides along to kidnap Pan. Pan knocks out the one guy that he's with, and Piccolo just kind of like, yeah, just come with me. And so they take off. Piccolo literally takes Pan to the Red Ribbon Army and leaves her there. Now, he did this for the reason of Gohan needs motivation in order to bring out his best and to stay on top of his game. So he figures if I put Pan in danger, Gohan will bring out his most fighting potential. He'll go back to being a warrior. He will realize that sometimes you can't rely on Goku and Vegeta to do everything. So because Goku and Vegeta are not part of the story, they're hanging out on Beerus's planet, with Beerus flirting with Broly's girlfriend and all kind of stuff like that. Classic Dragon Ball comedy. Gohan is then informed that Pan has been kidnapped. Piccolo once again takes this guy. He goes to Gohan's house and he's talking to Gohan about it. They tell Gohan she's been captured. Wonderful scene and at this point where the guy pulls a gun on Gohan and Gohan just takes the gun and throws it. Like, give me that thing and tosses it. And it's like, please leave. I love that part. It was so much fun. And then, he's told that Pan has been kidnapped. And he fires up, goes Super Saiyan, is pretty pissed. And, threatens to kill the guy. They take him to the Red Ribbon Army. This is where the big battle commences. Because now Gohan has to fight the Gammas. But the Gammas are androids. So they have unlimited power, pretty much. Not unlimited power, but they have unlimited stamina, rather. And they have, power cells and all this kind of stuff. Now, before he re-engaged with Gohan, Piccolo went to Kami's lookout. And he knew that he was going to need more power in order to defeat the Gammas, who kicked his ass just a few hours prior. So he's talking to Dende, and him and Dende, another member berry, where Piccolo says, hey, don't you have the abilities that the old Namek had to unlock people's inner potential? And can you do that for me? And Dende says, look, I'm not old enough to do that. Sure, I may have that ability one day, but I'm not old enough. So then they brainstorm some ideas and they come up with can the dragon do it? Can Shenron do it? Of course, the dragon can do anything. So instead of having to go around and collect the Dragon Balls, we find out that Bulma keeps the Dragon Balls with her all the time. And I love this part of the story because it's a great defense mechanism. Like, Bulma constantly has a team going out collecting Dragon Balls so that nobody else can get them. So she always has Dragon Balls. So they didn't have to look for them. They just called Bulma and got the Dragon Balls. Dende empowers Shenron to make more than one wish. The Bulma, of course, comes to Kami's lookout because she was the one delivering the Dragon Balls. Piccolo only has one wish. His wish was for his latent potential to be unlocked. The other two wishes are wasted on Bulma to make herself look younger and to have a nicer butt. It's just silly Dragon Ball humor, of course. Later, they make the joke that they could have just wished Goku and Vegeta to Earth, but they weren't thinking about it. And this is one of those fan servicey things that I didn't really care for, is that they dared to explain why Bulma still looks young, that she's been using the Dragon Balls to make herself look young. And while that's nice as an explanation, it also shows how incredibly petty that Bulma is. And, it's a nice little character trait for her. But if she keeps the Dragon Balls so that occasionally she can just wish for less wrinkles and longer eyelashes and a bigger butt and all that kind of stuff, it's just so ridiculous. But it goes back to Dragon Ball. You can't take everything seriously in Dragon Ball. I mean, the first wish was for panties or some nonsense like that, underwear. So Piccolo, of course, now we're going to jump back into the storyline. Piccolo is fighting the Gammas. He gets his ass kicked again. And this is when his power unlocks and he becomes Orange Piccolo. He's big and muscular and orange. And he fights the Gamma, but the Gamma 2 is the one he's fighting. And he realizes that Gamma 2 isn't really a bad guy. He's just following orders, but the orders that he got is from faulty information. He thinks that he's Demon King Piccolo. He thinks that he's out to destroy the Earth. He thinks that, everything in Capsule Corp is bad and everything is going wrong. And Piccolo is trying to, get this android to understand that things is not as they seem. You've been given bad information. We're not bad guys. We're not evil. You're on the side of the people who kidnapped a child. And, the android is trying to logically explain it. Like, look, we don't agree with everything, but yada, yada, yada. And ultimately, Gamma 2 flips and is like, you know what? You're right. Dr. Hedo also kind of does the same thing. At this point, because Piccolo and Gohan are beating the tar out of the Gammas, they're not winning, but Gohan they're kind of fighting evenly with the Gammas. Let's put it like that. Magenta says, screw it, we're doing Cell Max. So he runs to his lab. Dr. Hedo follows him. He doesn't want the Cell Max things because Cell is not ready yet. They get into a bit of a tiff right here. This is when Magenta shoots Dr. Hedo, forgetting that Dr. Hedo has impenetrable skin or whatever. And Dr. Hedo kills Magenta with the bee stinging him in the neck or something like that. But it was too late. Magenta, before he died, he wrecks the machine and out comes Cell Max. So from that point, Bulma goes around picking up all of the heroes. We get Goten and Trunks and Android 18 and Krillin. No Yamcha, no Tien, unfortunately. So, of course, the Z Fighters are now going to fight Cell Max, and the androids are going to help them. During the battle, they're told that the weak spot on Cell Max is the top of his head, so you have to hit the top of his head 100 times or whatever. And Gamma 2 sacrifices himself to damage Cell's head, even though he kind of failed. Sacrifices always fail in Dragon Ball. Always. So he is destroyed ultimately. So they eventually win when Gohan's power awakens as he watches Piccolo get beaten up by Cell Max. This is Orange Piccolo too, and Gohan channels up a new power set that they refer to as Beast Gohan, where his hair gets longer and spikier and white. And of course, he destroys Cell Max from there. Afterwards, Dr. Hedo apologizes for all of the horrible stuff that he did and asks for a job at Capsule Corp. Bulma is very interested in his skin modification technology because that's what she's been using the dragon for. So at least her silly shit played into the storyline. So now Dr. Hedo works in Capsule Corp and everything's going to go back to normal. There's still Gamma 1, so Gamma 1 still exists. So I was really thinking at the end of this movie, what's going to happen in terms of Dr. Hedo and Gamma 1 being at Capsule Corp. It's sort of like you're adding another really high level Z fighter, quote unquote, in Gamma 1, who's going to be a part of the team. And, in doing that, you basically have another useless character on the roster. You also have another character in Dr. Hedo that was a villain that is now turned to a good guy. But he was never really a villain in the first place. He was just kind of greedy and selfish, which is they're sins, but I guess you could look at or ask the question of whether he was really that bad of a guy. So let's go into the David Mamet questions. So the 4 questions. 1, what does your hero want? 2, who stands in their way? 3, what happens if they don't get it? 4, why now? So 1, what does your hero want? Gohan wants to protect the Earth and save his daughter. Cut and dry. Piccolo wants to bring out the best in Gohan and to remind Gohan that he is a fighter and it's up to him to protect the Earth. For the villains, because I like to do this for the villains sometimes too, Dr. Hedo wants his research on androids funded, and Magenta wants world domination. So 2, who stands in their way? For Gohan, it's the Red Ribbon Army, the android, Cell Max, everything. For Piccolo, it is Gohan's reticence on becoming a fighter, his reluctance to engage, and Gohan's reliance on others. So Gohan choosing to rely on Goku and Vegeta to protect the planet and not actually be any good at it himself is a problem, and it stands in the way of what Piccolo wants for Gohan. For the villains, Dr. Hedo, nothing really stands in his way because he is getting what he wants, with his Magenta funding his research, and he getting it pretty much without any strings attached. For Magenta, it is Capsule Corp and the Z Fighters. They're standing in the way of his world domination scheme. So what happens if they don't get it? It's pretty simple for Gohan. He loses his daughter and the world is conquered. For Piccolo, it's proven that he's a failure as a mentor, that he was never actually able to motivate Gohan and to stand as a fighter. For the villains, you have Hedo wasting his talents, failure to reach his full potential. And for Magenta, pretty much the same thing, just failure to reach his full potential. Why now? Why is this story happening right now? But for Gohan, it's because Pan was kidnapped and the Red Ribbon Army returned. For Piccolo, Goku and Vegeta are off-world. Gohan is slacking in his parenting and in his training, and he feels like he has to motivate Gohan. For the villains, this is for Dr. Hedo. It is just an opportunity that arises that he meets Magenta. For Magenta, his research on Capsule Corporation and Dr. Hedo is complete. And now is sort of the right time to launch a strike against Capsule Corp. So this movie is very good, as I've said, but I feel like I need to critique it. And so here's some of the things about the movie that I didn't really care for. Let's go through some of the strengths and weaknesses. One of the strengths for me is the development of Piccolo and Gohan. We got to see Piccolo do something that he never does, which is, engage with humanity. He went into the Red Ribbon Army camp dressed as a Red Ribbon Army soldier. We got to see Piccolo use a cell phone. We got to see Piccolo drive a car. Interestingly enough, as he's piloting a skyship at one point, he says, "I never learned how to drive." And I was kind of like, yes, you did. Yes, you did learn how to drive. I don't care if it wasn't non-canon. The negative side to this is that it's the same lessons Gohan has to learn 100 times already. How many times has Piccolo had to teach Gohan this lesson that is up to him to protect the Earth, and Gohan has his own inner power that he has to dig down into? It's like it's the same fucking story with Gohan every time. For this, another strength was Gamma 2 and Dr. Hedo, which is, I think, were morally gray characters, which is not all the way something that is unique to Dragon Ball, or something that doesn't happen quite often in Dragon Ball. But I liked both of those characters. I think that Dr. Hedo was pretty smart. I think I liked Gamma too. He had a lot of personality. Gamma 1 didn't. He didn't really have that much of a personality. Another strength that I think we got out of this is that we had a better version of Pan. She was far more likable. She was a young kid at this point, so it was great. So some of the weaknesses, I've already mentioned that Gohan and Piccolo have gone through the same song and dance 100 times. Bulma wasting the wishes. I just, it is what it is. Even though they did kind of tie it into the storyline later with now Bulma doesn't need to do it anymore because Dr. Hedo is probably going to teach her how to modify her skin on her own. Piccolo at one point says it's best if we pretend this never happened, which is kind of sounds like he's going to, you're going to take this movie out of the canon, which you probably shouldn't. There's absolutely no tension in the kidnapping. Pan is kidnapped by Piccolo, not really by the Red Ribbon Army. Piccolo snatches Pan. So you think that the Red Ribbon Army is going to snatch Pan and she's going to be held hostage, and Gohan and Piccolo is going to have to storm the Red Ribbon Army in order to get her back. But in reality, Piccolo took her there as a training exercise for Gohan. That's bullshit, all right? That's absolute bull fucking shit, okay? Second, Cell Max. Cell it's a husk of Cell. Cell Max looks just like Cell's second version after he ate one of the androids. And he has no personality. He just looks like Cell. And that brings me to the final thing, which is the fan service of using Red Ribbon Army, bringing them back again, bringing Cell back, more androids. There's been tons of fucking androids in Dragon Ball. It's just far too many androids. So that kind of stuff was a negative, but overall the movie was fantastic. It was a very fun, if you like Dragon Ball, you will love this thing. It's a great love letter to the fans. All the little member berries is in there. So if you've been watching Super, you've been watching Z, you watch the original, it's all in there. So I love the film. Hopefully everybody else liked it too. But what did you guys think? Like, share, subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.